SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Toyota Brookhaven services all makes and models. That could be why we were voted best service department the past 2 years. Come see why. Exit 40 Brookhaven or online at ToyotaBrookhaven.com. Great service, great savings. At Toyota Brookhaven, we deliver.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive. But now I'm a man, way past 21. I want you to believe me, baby.
Hey, good morning. Welcome in. It is the start of a new week. Mornings with Richard Cross. Also the start of a new month. Well, really a day into it already. Today, March 2nd, 2026. It's Monday morning, and you've got it tuned into Super Talk Mississippi. We're glad that you are with us, whether you're listening online, on the app, or on your Super Talk Mississippi radio stations. Thanks for joining us. You can be part of the conversation on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395, 601-879-4395, and we have got plenty to talk about with you this morning. The show's presented every day by Community Bank. Online at communitybank.net. Community Bank, rooted in our community. I'm Richard Cross. He is Lance Tolbert. Good morning, Lance.
Good morning. Hope you had a nice weekend, dude. It was, great weather, but man, what a end to a week and a start to a new one. Bringing in March.
Weather's spectacular. I was in your general neck of the woods for most of the day on Saturday. Mm-hmm. Had a couple of lacrosse games.
How did you do? Did you play well?
Well, I actually didn't play.
I'm kidding with you.
Yeah.
You're more of a polo guy. I know.
Yeah. And the ponies were they were not wanting to run this weekend. No, Obi had lacrosse, and it was a great day. Great day.
Isn't lacrosse fun and rough and a little scary? I mean,
well, yes.
Yeah, I mean it's a great sport.
But I felt like I watched two different sports on Saturday in the two games. So the first game was the JV game. And a bunch of kids that were playing their first ever game. And it was kind of neat to see it started to click for some of them kind of in the second half. But, the scoreboard wasn't super pretty in that one. But everybody seemed to, for the most part, have a good time. But then in the varsity game, it was like, oh, yeah, this is what it's supposed to look like. And it was the squad that we were there for was they walked away with smiles on their faces after the second game. It was pretty lopsided in that one. So it was fun. And I sat on the bleachers for about 4 hours through two games with some time in between. And man, it felt so good just kind of sitting out there and soaking up the sun. And I got home and we had something to go to that night, so I took a shower and got out and I looked in the mirror, and this right side of my face, I mean,
just fried.
It was crimson. And I was like, Jane, I think I got a little sun today. She's like, oh, my gosh. Yeah. But a lot of you may have been like that this weekend in terms, got out, worked in the yard some, took care of some things, spent some time in the sunshine. You're like, oh, all right, there's the first little sunburn of the year. Maybe. I don't know. Did you get outside yesterday?
Was I outside yesterday?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I was out all day. Tried to watch as much baseball as possible on the porch. Played with the dogs most of the day. Yeah, I did, whatever I could do outside yesterday. It was awesome.
There you go. I think we got the final chapter of the yard cleanup post-winter storm knocked out yesterday.
Ooh. But you got a nice pile of debris.
Piles.
Multiple.
Yes. Thanks for joining us. Let's jump in and get rolling this morning. IEEPA, going to be nice for you today. 73 for your high with a slight chance of a rain shower. Cloudy skies and winds out of the south at 5 to 10 miles per hour. A little warmer in the Delta, partly cloudy in Greenwood with a high near 80. Same winds, 5 to 10 out of the south. Macon, 80 degrees for you today. Partly cloudy. And Biloxi, some patchy fog early and then partly cloudy as we go through the day. High of 74. A little breezier, though, on the coast, 10 to 15 miles an hour out of the southeast. Dr. Seuss was born on this day in 1904. Theodore Geisel, the iconic American children's author and illustrator, known for classics like The Cat in the Hat, Green Eggs and Ham, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and my personal favorite, Oh, the Places You'll Go.
Good stuff there, man. Good
the
stuff.
fact that Teddy Geisel was both the author and the illustrator is pretty remarkable. John Bon Jovi was born on this day in 1962. The rock singer, songwriter, and the frontman for, you guessed it, Bon Jovi. Living on a Prayer, You Give Love a Bad Name. You a Bon Jovi guy?
Oh, man, yeah. I remember sitting in like 5th grade and some kid came in with a Bon Jovi T-shirt on, and I had no idea who the guy was. And I learned pretty quick after that, though. It's like, man, this Bon Jovi guy is pretty cool, isn't he?
Okay.
Because, back then.
Did you one-up him and come in with a Bon Jovi haircut the next day?
No, not at all. But yeah, back then you had to kind of learn music. Who's up now and who's going to be good. And, somebody'd come in with a T-shirt you'd never seen, and then you'd listen to them and be like, wow, man, that blew my mind. Now
Who's that Van Halen guy?
Who is this? So, yeah, I loved Bon Jovi in that era, definitely.
Daniel Craig, born on this day in 1968, the British actor known best for portraying James Bond in films like Casino Royale, Skyfall, and No Time to Die. Chris Martin, the lead singer and songwriter of the rock band Coldplay. A lot of people like Coldplay.
Yeah. It's not my cup of tea, but yeah, they're pretty good band though. Natalie. I don't know how we're doing it. Nathalie. Mm-hmm. British version.
British actress. She played Miss Sandy in Game of Thrones. I probably mispronounced that. And had some roles in Fast and the Furious. Luke Combs, American country singer and songwriter. Probably biggest hit. Man, this feels like this is unfair to him not to pick one of his songs. But the remake of Fast Car?
I don't know, man. I love the beer song. We'll have it coming back in.
Okay.
Beer Never Broke. He just jams it. I mean, it's something about the way he plays that song that just, to me, highlights his abilities.
That's fair. Beautiful, Crazy, When It Rains, It Pours. Beer Never Broke My Heart.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Houston, 1793. He was an American soldier, statesman, and the first president of the Republic of Texas. Played a major role in Texas's independence and annexation to the United States. On this day in 1776, during the American Revolutionary War, General George Washington ordered the bombardment of British-held Boston. From Dorchester Heights, preparatory actions began around this date, helping force the British evacuation of the city shortly thereafter. In 1807, the U.S. Congress passed the act prohibiting importation of slaves, banning enslaved people into the United States. It was a key step toward limiting the transatlantic slave trade, though it did continue domestically. Today in 1836, a big day for Texas. I'll bet they'll have a cerveza or two to celebrate. Texas declared its independence from Mexico at the convention of 1836 in Washington on the Brazos, establishing the Republic of Texas. This sparked the Texas Revolution and eventually led to the annexation of Texas by the United States. In 1877, Rutherford B. Hayes was declared the winner of a disputed 1876 presidential election by a special electoral commission, ending the controversy. He was inaugurated the very next day, marking the end of Reconstruction in the South. A couple more of these.
Yeah, the cool thing about Hayes was, basically won because he was willing to remove the federal troops from the American South. And then the next president, obviously, was Garfield, who was assassinated very quickly into his presidency, both Republicans.
William McKinley signed legislation on this day in 1899 creating Mount Rainier National Park, Washington State, the fifth U.S. national park, and an important milestone in American conservation efforts. Beautiful area. Beautiful.
The whole state's pretty, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Operation Rolling Thunder began today in 1965, a sustained aerial bombing campaign against North Vietnam that continued until 1968. Didn't really achieve the goals that they were hoping for. And today in 1969, the supersonic passenger jet Concorde made its first test flight, a maiden flight from Toulouse, France. The Anglo-French project represented a pinnacle of aviation innovation, though it was later retired in 2003 after limited commercial success. I would have loved to have taken one flight on the Concorde.
Oh, yeah, that'd have been cool, huh?
Very cool. We're back with you. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi, just getting started.
From the Venable Glass Track.
A cup of coffee and get the Magnolia State's most important news of the day. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Pretty good, you're right. Good to be with you on this Monday morning, the 2nd of March. Alongside Lance Tolbert, I'm Richard Cross. We have got a busy show for you this morning. Coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, William Russell will join us. You know William as a former advisor to the Trump campaign. He was the state director here in Mississippi. He is a partner at Ballard in D.C., Ballard Partners, consulting and political firm there. We got a lot of ground to cover with William this morning about what's going on in D.C. I guess I think you're really going to enjoy coming your way at 8 o'clock. Brigham McCown. He is a senior fellow and director at the Initiative on American Energy Security. He works in the energy and logistics, global supply chain space. And we're going to talk with him about what is happening in terms of the oil markets, what he expects things to look like at the overnight, what it opened and spiked and then came down, and it's bouncing around all over the place. A lot of volatility within the markets right now, and also global supply chain in terms of not just oil, but also liquefied natural gas. All of that stuff goes through the Strait of Hormuz, and Iran has said that is closed. So, and of course, JT Mitchell will join us at the end of the 8 o'clock hour this morning, but it's time for us to jump into some news headlines with you, and we start with the biggest story of the weekend, and that is the joint American-Israeli attack on Iran. You woke up to that news on Saturday morning and also to an address from the President of the United States. In case you missed that, I thought it was the most compelling address that Donald Trump has made in his 2 terms of office. It is 8 minutes long. There is no rambling. There is no weaving. It is straightforward. It is concise, and it is direct. And we're going to play that for you. I think we got that loaded up to go.
Hold on just a second. Not yet.
No, I'm not right now. Not right now. In the 7 o'clock hour, we'll do that. I just wanted to make sure that it was in the system. So I think we're going to play that for you coming up a little bit later this morning. So, what's going on right now? I don't know that we necessarily need to recap the entirety. There are a couple of things, though, that stand out. The attack happened in the daytime, which is kind of un-U.S. military strategy-like, or really un-any military strategy-like. But it happened in the daytime because credible information came to intelligence sources for the United States and Israel, putting all of the leaders of the regime in the same place, and they decided to attack. And they took out the Ayatollah and much of the senior leadership for the Iranian regime, the Iranian Republic. I guess small, brief history lesson, just in case you need the reminder. And this is, if you know all of this, forgive me. Iran is what in Bible times was referred to as Persia. In 1978 and into 1979, you had the Iranian Revolution. The Iranian people largely supported it at the time. That was a regime change in which Crown Prince Zavali was exiled, or I guess exiled himself, and the clerics took over. And they have been running the country for 47 years. And the Iranian people have become more and more frustrated. They've become less and less prosperous. The Iranians have been the largest state sponsor of terrorism on the planet. They have their own military, but they have not used their own military for those terror attacks. They have funded Hezbollah. They have funded Hamas. They have funded the Houthis. Basically all the really, really bad guys in the world, at least the ones that weren't funded by Iraq along the way. You had an 8-year war between Iraq and Iran that happened, and I guess that probably gave rise to those proxies that were fighting each other in addition to the countries fighting themselves. But the biggest issue has been Iran's infatuation with nuclear material so that they could make a nuclear bomb or nuclear warheads. We know that in June there was that strategic attack on the major nuclear site in Iran, set their nuclear program back. It did not completely dismantle it. The United States has told Iran over and over and over, do not try to reassemble. They've been negotiating. The United States was willing to allow nuclear material to remain for energy production, but certainly not for the advancement of weapons-grade uranium. There was a report that some of their uranium had reached 60% enrichment. It made all of this a little more timely, and the United States and Israel attacked on Saturday morning. That's when things got really interesting and scary also, because it was strategic and concentrated takeout of military sites, missile sites, missile locations, missile launch points, military infrastructure, and Iran just started firing missiles indiscriminately. Not just at United States or Israel fighter jets or anything that was trying to attack them, but neighboring countries in the Middle East, in the Gulf region. And so in the process of doing that, it appears that Iran created more enemies, in some cases enemies that have even been supportive of them in recent months and certainly in recent years, including Bahrain, the UAE, Jordan, and others. And so just kind of fast forwarding with where we are today, we are expecting a Pentagon briefing coming later this morning on the strikes in Iran. Hezbollah out of Lebanon has fired missiles into Israel, and so Israel has been attacking the capital city of Lebanon, Beirut, along with other Hezbollah leadership locations. But there have been attacks on U.S. and Israeli military installations throughout the Middle East. Cyprus, the island of Cyprus, reporting that a drone hit the British military base that is stationed there. Iraqi militia actually claiming that drone strike. It certainly would be, well, and remember, Iraq is such an unstable place. We have had lots of involvement there. We have been working with Iraq for a number of years now, but you do still have terrorist groups that are there and independent militias that are there that are not part of the kind of Iraqi national government. Israel has been warning people in Lebanon, get out of the way. If your village is one that is targeted, you need to move outside the village, and they've been giving heads up on that. Bahrain this morning has intercepted dozens of Iranian missiles and drones. Qatar has issued a warning for its residents to stay indoors. Future shares in United States and Asian stocks opened lower in overnight hours. It is a massive mess in the Middle East right now. We're going to talk more about this throughout the course of the morning. A couple of other things to mention to you, though, in our news headlines, far more local. University of Mississippi Medical Center back at full capacity starting this morning. That is good news after nearly a week and a half of being offline because of a cyber attack that hit UMMC's computer systems a week and a half ago, Thursday a week ago. On Friday, officials announced that the hospital had made significant strides in restoring many systems, hoping that they would be back at it today. It appears that that is going to be the case. UMMC's record system had been shut down, and other systems, including the hospital's website, phone lines, email, and other things were disrupted, prompting a shutdown of all of their clinics and outpatient facilities across the state. That is hopefully changing today. In the wake of Winter Storm Fern, over 12,000 claims have been filed, totaling more than $107 million. That's what the state's insurance department announced at the end of last week. Insurance Commissioner Mike Chaney said, "I have instructed companies throughout the state to participate in a data call. Results have started coming in showing just how many properties and homeowners were impacted. I expect that number to continue to climb as reporting continues." According to numbers provided by the Department of Insurance, majority of claims so far have been for residential property, more than 10,000 of those. Of the over 12,000 claims, 55% have been closed, and more than $60 million has already been paid. Those are your news headlines abroad and here in Mississippi on this Monday morning, March 2nd. We're back with you right after this.
From the Seabrook,
shaping Mississippi politics each morning. Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk Mississippi.
Billy Ray was a preacher's son, and when his daddy would visit, he'd come along. When they gathered around and started talking, Cousin Billy would take me walking. Out through the backyard we go walking. Then he looked into my eyes. Lord knows to my surprise, the only one who could ever reach me was the son of a preacher man. The only boy who could ever teach me was the son of a preacher man. Yes, he was.
Good to be with you on this Monday morning, the 2nd of March. Alongside Lance Tolbert, I'm Richard Cross. Thanks for joining us. You can be part of the conversation on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. 601-879-4395. C Spire text line. It's very hard to make sense of having Kushner work diligently on these Abraham peace accords while also potentially starting World War III. The whole nuke thing is BS. We hit them because our leaders in Israel said so. The Iranians largely supported it at the time. Perfect example of be careful what you wish for and the devil you know. Talking about when the Iranian Revolution happened back in 78, 79. Thomas wants to know when Congress declared war. I'm shocked that Thomas is, taking a dissenting approach to what is going on. Shocked by that, I tell you. All right, let's get into your morning sports update brought to you by Pearl River Resort, online at pearlriverresort.com. Pearl River Resort is the home of the Dancing Rabbit Golf Club, 2 18-hole championship courses, the Oaks and the Azaleas. You can book your tee time online at dancingrabbitgolf.com. Dancing Rabbit, part of Pearl River Resort. Let's start with basketball. Ole Miss snapped a 10-game losing streak on Saturday night with an 85-79 victory over the Auburn Tigers. Ole Miss was led by freshman Patton Pinkins, who had 26 points, including 4 of 5 from three-point land. He was 8 of 10 from the field, played 38 minutes of the game, also went 6 of 7 from the free throw line. So a good game for Patton Pinkins. Also, A.J. Storr, 26 points on 9 of 15 shooting. The only other Rebel in double figures was Malik Dia. He played just 19 minutes but had 10 points in the game. Auburn was led in scoring by Tahad Pettiford with his 24 points. Auburn beat Ole Miss in Oxford earlier this year. The Rebels, though, snapped that skid and finally get the monkey off their back. That had to feel good. And to do it on the road in a tough place to play, pretty significant. Auburn fell to 6-10 in the SEC. They are 15-14 overall, and odds looking really long for them to make the NCAA tournament. Ole Miss picked up their 4th SEC win, and they moved to 12-17 on the season. Mississippi State hosted Missouri on Saturday. It was one of the early games in the SEC, and Missouri got the win 88-64 over the Bulldogs. Mississippi State fell to 5-11 in conference play. They are 13-16 overall. Missouri led the game 54-23 at halftime and cruised to the 24-point win. Tigers are now 10-6 on the season. In terms of scoring for Mississippi State, Josh Hubbard had 16 on 6 of 14 from the field. Quincy Ballard had 12. Those were the only 2 players for Mississippi State in double figures. 2 games remaining in the regular season for all of the basketball teams in the SEC. Better news for Mississippi State baseball. They were in Arlington, Texas this weekend, playing in one of those early season tournaments. Bulldogs won their first 2 games in the tournament. They beat 12th-ranked Arizona State 8-4 on Friday morning. On Saturday afternoon, they won 15-8 against Virginia Tech. And then yesterday, they took on the team that was ranked number 1 in the country, UCLA. It took extra innings, but UCLA emerged victorious. They won at 8-7. Bulldogs had runners at second and third in the bottom of the 10th inning, and they got the win. UCLA with a big home run from Rock Chalowski. He hit a 2-run home run in the top of the 9th inning that tied the game at 5. They got into extra innings, and UCLA able to put 3 runs on the board. Mississippi State countered with 2 in the bottom of the 10th. Reed Stallman hit a 2-run home run, but that's where it ended for the Bulldogs. And, man, what a baseball game yesterday.
Wasn't it? I had to listen to it, but you couldn't really watch it. That sounded like whoever was there was enjoying quite a ball game.
Yeah, no doubt.
Man.
Did Caleb do the radio this weekend?
No, I did the early stuff, and then Perez came in and did the night game.
No, I'm talking about the Mississippi State broadcast.
I'm not sure on that.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Gotcha.
as far as the internal stuff, Perez and I usually slice that up on Saturday, but not sure.
Bulldogs back in action on Tuesday night when they travel to Hattiesburg to take on the flaming hot Southern Mississippi Golden Eagles. USM went to Ruston this past weekend to take on Louisiana Tech, and they came home with 3 wins. 8-3 on Friday night, 11-0 in just 7 innings on Saturday, and then they finished off the sweep yesterday with a 6-2 win. Southern Miss has now won 10 in a row. They lost the season opener and have ripped off 10 straight, and man, what an atmosphere they are going to have in Hattiesburg tomorrow night for that 6 o'clock showdown with Mississippi State. We'll wait and see when the D1 baseball polls come out later today, but that is in all likelihood going to be a top 10 March matchup in the midweek in Hattiesburg between the Bulldogs and the Golden Eagles. That one should be a lot of fun. And not a great weekend for Ole Miss baseball. The Rebels went to Houston, Daikin Park, formerly Minute Maid Park, the home of the Houston Astros. Game 1 on Friday saw Ole Miss lose in extra innings. One of the quirks that you see in some of these early season tournaments, when you get to the 10th inning, you start the inning with a runner on second base. That's something Major League Baseball has adopted in the regular season for the last couple of years. Baylor got a base hit from their leadoff hitter in the top of the 10th inning to put themselves in front. Ole Miss had base runners in the bottom of the 10th, but could not get it done. 6-5 the final, losing a heartbreaker. It really was a good baseball game. Back and forth on Friday in Houston. On Saturday, the Rebels got a grand slam late to open it up against Ohio State. 8-0 was the final. Dom Decker hit a home run early in the ball game, and then Mosley hit a grand slam on the first pitch that he saw. I think it was in the 8th inning. And 8-0 was the final. And then yesterday, Coastal Carolina beat Ole Miss 9-2. And so the Rebels dropped 2 out of 3 on the weekend in the 3 teams that they play. Ole Miss returns to action tomorrow night at 6:30 at home against the Memphis Tigers. And then in the final, they'll play North Alabama on Wednesday. So a couple of midweek games. And then the final weekend before conference play begins, it's Ole Miss and Evansville for a 3-game series starting on Friday. So that is your baseball roundup from the weekend for Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Southern Miss. A couple of other things from the sports world. Tyler Reddick became the first driver in NASCAR Cup Series history to win the first 3 races of the season with his victory yesterday at the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. Driving a Toyota co-owned by Michael Jordan, Reddick won the season-opening Daytona 500. He won a week later in Atlanta. And then from the pole position yesterday, he won on the first road course race of the year. Held off hard-charging Shane Van Gisbergen, the Trackhouse driver and the series' dominant road driver over the final 20 laps. Reddick, really good all weekend. His 11th career victory was also his second at COTA. That would be the Circuit of the Americas, track built for Formula One. And it's the first time he's had multiple victories on the same track. And finally, the NFL Combine is off and rolling and maybe even wrapping up at this point. Going into last season, there were a lot of people that talked about the speed of Brennan Thompson. He was called the fastest man in college football. Probably proved that at the NFL Combine over the weekend. He ran an official 4.26 in the 40-yard dash. Expected to be the fastest time at this year's Combine. It is the second fastest of all time. Xavier Worthy in 2024 ran a 4.21. They said third fastest receiver to run at the Combine since 2003, tying Jerome Mathis's 4.26. Only John Ross with a 4.22 in 2017, and Worthy have posted faster marks in that time frame. Brennan Thompson was the only Bulldog invited to the Combine, and he had a big time there. That's your morning sports update brought to you by Pearl River Resort. We're back with you right after this. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
From the Venable
Mornings with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
What else?
And always on the SuperTalk app.
Thanks for joining us. It is Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi, and it's time for your Mississippi Lottery Update, brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery, online at mslottery.com. There was no Saturday night jackpot winner in the Powerball, and so the estimated jackpot for tonight, $249 million. The estimated cash value, a little over $117 million. Mega Millions, it's a big one on Tuesday night, $473 million in the jackpot with an estimated cash value of $221,800,000. That is a big one. Lottery Claims Office paid out $610,000 last weekend, while retailers paid out just a shade over $6 million. Don't forget that you've got new games in March, new scratch-off games, all-star scratch-offs that are going to be released tomorrow, all with multiplier fun. The 2x $2, top prizes of $20,000, 5x crossword, $3 for top prizes of $35,000. There's a $5 10x scratch-off for $100,000 prizes with multipliers up to 10x, and then the 20x $10 scratch-off for $200,000 in top prizes and multipliers up to 20x. Get your multiplier madness scratch-offs in March at participating retailers. Learn more at mslottery.com or on the Mississippi Lottery official app. Just kind of scrolling through some of the winners. Man, it feels like it's always hard to pull the trigger on one of those $30 scratch-offs.
Ooh, yeah.
Because if you scratch it off and nothing happens, you're like, man,
Yeah.
$30. That was a lot. Well, it paid off for a Blue Mountain man who won $50,000 on a ticket from Circle K in New Albany on that $30 Millionaire Maker scratch-off. So congratulations to him. That is your Mississippi Lottery Update. Be sure to visit them online at mslottery.com and grab the free Mississippi Lottery app. Ongoing conflict, war in the Middle East, in the Gulf states, in and around Iran. And one of the things that has happened is an oil refinery in Saudi Arabia has been hit by a drone. This is the Ras Tanura refinery, and it is owned by Saudi Aramco, the largest oil refinery in Saudi Arabia. They process 550,000 barrels of crude oil every single day. And just in case you weren't sure, price of poker has gone up in a big, big way as Iran has fired missiles or drones or weapons at a number of the surrounding countries in the Middle East. The ultimate goal in all of this is for the Iranian people to overthrow the regime and retake their government. Reza Pahlavi was the Shah when the Iranian Revolution happened back in 1979. He has been in exile ever since. He was on 60 Minutes with Scott Pelley and had an interesting answer to a question about a message that he has for Donald Trump.
What is your message to President Trump?
My message to President Trump is that I'm here to echo and join millions of my compatriots inside and outside of Iran to thank him for having done and having the courage to do what is not easy, but intervene. And he will go down in the annals of Iranian history as the most celebrated foreign leader that changed the ball game and changed the world as a result.
In January, President Trump said this about you, quote, "He seems very nice, but I don't know how he'd play within his own country. I don't know whether or not his country would accept his leadership, and certainly if they would, that would be fine with me." you don't seem to have President Trump's wholehearted support.
Well, first of all, I don't think that somebody in my position will ever expect to have an official endorsement of a foreign government or a foreign leader. What I do know now is that millions of Iranians inside Iran and outside of Iran are calling my name. They recognize in me the person uniquely placed to play a role of transitional leadership. Not running for office, because that's not what I'm doing, but to be a bridge to that destiny.
So that was Reza Pahlavi, the exiled crown prince of Iran, with Scott Pelley on 60 Minutes. Saw one reaction to that clip said, I can't believe 60 Minutes allowed that to air. In which Pahlavi praised President Trump. And the question is, will there be enough organization for Iran to successfully run a coup and retake their government and then transition to actual free and fair elections? I don't know if they'll have to have voter ID in order to vote if they get to that point. I guess we'll have to wait and see on that. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi, 7 o'clock hour coming up after the news.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Good to be with you this morning as we roll into the 7 o'clock hour. It is Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi, presented by Community Bank. At Community Bank, we're more than just a place to manage your money. We're your neighbors, your partners, and your trusted financial advisors. For decades, we've been rooted in our community, helping families, small businesses, and individuals achieve their dreams. Whether it's opening your first savings account, planning for a brighter future, or growing your business, we're here every step of the way. We're dedicated to our customers, committed to your success, and always here when you need us. Community Bank, rooted in our community, member FDIC. Thanks for joining us this morning. The C Spire text line is open, 601-879-4395, 601-879-4395. This tax season, C Spire is helping you stretch your refund and still get the devices you want. Right now, new and current customers can get 3 free devices plus 100 gigs of data for just $100. There's more to see at cspire.com. We woke up on Saturday morning to an address from the President of the United States. Maybe you've read the Cliff Notes version of this. Maybe you've watched or listened to it in its entirety. But I think it was significant enough that we want to play it for you in its entirety. If you're watching on SuperTalk TV, you will see that. This was the President of the United States, Donald Trump, in the early morning hours on Saturday discussing what was happening in Iran.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries. Among the regime's very first acts was to back a violent takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, holding dozens of American hostages for 444 days. In 1983, Iran's proxies carried out the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut that killed 241 American military personnel. In 2000, they knew and were probably involved with the attack on the USS Cole. Many died. Iranian forces killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq. The regime's proxies have continued to launch countless attacks against American forces stationed in the Middle East in recent years, as well as U.S. naval and commercial vessels and international shipping lanes. It's been mass terror, and we're not going to put up with it any longer. From Lebanon to Yemen and Syria to Iraq, the regime has armed, trained, and funded terrorist militias that have soaked the earth with blood and guts. And it was Iran's proxy, Hamas, that launched the monstrous October 7th attacks on Israel, slaughtering more than 1,000 innocent people, including 46 Americans, while taking 12 of our citizens hostage. It was brutal, something like the world has never seen before. Iran is the world's #1 state sponsor of terror and just recently killed tens of thousands of its own citizens on the street as they protested. It has always been the policy of the United States, in particular, my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. I'll say it again. They can never have a nuclear weapon. That is why in Operation Midnight Hammer last June, we obliterated the regime's nuclear program at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. After that attack, we warned them never to resume their malicious pursuit of nuclear weapons, and we sought repeatedly to make a deal. We tried. They wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. Again, they wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. They didn't know what was happening. They just wanted to practice evil. But Iran refused, just as it has for decades and decades. They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore. Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland. Just imagine how emboldened this regime would be if they ever had and actually were armed with nuclear weapons as a means to deliver their message. For these reasons, the United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests. We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated. We're going to annihilate their Navy. We're going to ensure that the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world and attack our forces and no longer use their IEDs or roadside bombs, as they are sometimes called, to so gravely wound and kill thousands and thousands of people, including many Americans. And we will ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. It's a very simple message. They will never have a nuclear weapon. This regime will soon learn that no one should challenge the strength and might of the United States Armed Forces. I built and rebuilt our military in my first administration, and there is no military on earth even close to its power, strength, or sophistication. My administration has taken every possible step to minimize the risk to U.S. personnel in the region. Even so, and I do not make this statement lightly, the Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission. We pray for every service member as they selflessly risk their lives to ensure that Americans and our children will never be threatened by a nuclear-armed Iran. We ask God to protect all of our heroes in harm's way, and we trust that with his help, the men and women of the armed forces will prevail. We have the greatest in the world, and they will prevail. To the members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the armed forces, and all of the police, I say tonight that you must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or in the alternative, face certain death. So, lay down your arms. You will be treated fairly with total immunity, or you will face certain death. Finally, to the great proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want. So let's see how you respond. America is backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach. This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass. May God bless the brave men and women of America's armed forces. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless you all. Thank you.
That was Donald Trump in the early morning hours on Saturday, laying out the case against Iran, touting the military might of the United States, calling for members of the Revolutionary Guard to lay down their weapons and join the fight against the regime, and in doing so, receive complete immunity, and if choosing not to do so, dying. And then finally, speaking directly to the Iranian people. The regime's propaganda TV station was hacked. This message was played with Iranian subtitles for the people of Iran to hear themselves. There's been a lot of cyber war that has been going on during this process as well. William Russell will join us next. We'll talk with him about Iran and everything else happening in D.C.
From the Bendable Glass Traffic.
From Sumner to Summit to Summerall, Richard has something for you. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
One bad piece of news this morning from military activities that are happening in the Middle East. You had 3 American warplanes that were mistakenly shot down by Kuwaiti air defenses. Kuwait has acknowledged this. They have apologized. The good news in this is that all 6 aircrew members were able to safely eject, and they were quickly recovered and are in stable condition. So, you hate losing the 3 fighter jets, but thrilled that you've got all of those pilots and crew members safe on the ground and recovering. We are scheduled to visit now with William Russell. He is a former advisor to the Trump campaign. He was the state director for the Trump campaign in Mississippi and currently works in Washington, D.C. He's a partner at Ballard Partners and always good to visit. William, good morning to you. Having trouble hearing him. I was hoping it was going to work. I think he hears us, and we're going to have to jump on a phone call here in just a second. Trying to get the bugs worked out. It's Monday for the computers, too. It happens. Remind you that this hour of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough, and if you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you're not alone. That's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They can provide a full range of employer services plus a custom plan that fits you. Give them a call today, 601-206-7966, or go to mwgemployerservices.com. That's mwgemployerservices.com. When you look at the situation the United States is in right now, at war with Iran, shoulder to shoulder with Israel, and more American allies and Gulf states allies joining the conflict by seemingly the minute as Iran continues to fire indiscriminately, you're reminded that this is a different foreign policy stance than previous administrations have taken with Iran. Trump has said no more nuclear weapons, and Iran is like, yeah, we'll kind of do what we want. And then we bombed their nuclear facility. And they were like, no more development. Well, let's negotiate. Okay, here are the negotiating parameters. And then they break the rules. And at some point, you have to back up tough talk, and that's what the United States seemingly has done. William Russell joining us now. What is the reaction in D.C.? Some of the members of Congress that you would expect have already pushed back. There are others who are taking more of a wait-and-see approach and want to hear the president out and hear the full justification. What happens this morning when Congress rolls in?
It's a good question, Richard. I mean, I think this is divided on party lines at the moment. I mean, we've seen Republicans who have applauded the president's leadership, taking down the Ayatollah. Like that's something that's been needing to happen. I'm surprised we haven't done it by this point already. He was an evil guy and he needed to go. However, you've got Democrats on the other side who are kind of doing the same thing, but also their political position is, well, where was the justification in this through Congress? Why didn't we have a conversation about this beforehand? Now, the dirty little secret in Washington, D.C. is no secret at all, is if you want to get something out into the world, tell a congressman or tell a senator. So there's a reason why the president did what he did with these tactical strikes. And now the president will likely have to go to Congress. I mean, the end goal of all of this is regime change. That's something that the president and his team have seen coming out of Iran for a long time. But we also know that in regime change, it doesn't happen from the air. It doesn't happen from the sea. You have to almost assuredly put boots on the ground. And so that would be a full-blown declaration of war. That will require congressional support. So the path forward kind of is open at this point. And I don't think that, at least from the president's conversations to the American public this weekend, I don't think that he hasn't laid out a very clear plan what he's going to do next. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not supportive, and there are those like me who are not supportive of what he's done. However, I think a little bit more justification, a little more clear mindset of the next step forward, even as operations are still ongoing in Iran. I think that's what's necessary, and that's what I'd like to hear from the president and his team this week.
I think for the most part, and I'm speaking very loosely here, Americans agree with the fact that the Ayatollah needed to be taken out. They are generally okay with strikes and coalition forces working together to take out missile sites, ballistic and otherwise, and to make sure that uranium program goes away. I think it's a much harder case to sell for putting American troops on the ground in Iran on the heels of Iraq and Afghanistan and what has felt like 20 years of endless war without maybe the results that some people would have liked to have seen. How does he make that case?
Listen, I agree with you. I'm not the only one who has not memory hold the Iraq War. That's a tough thing to square with the American people, especially from a guy who's run on no new wars. I think that it's one of the reasons why you've seen the language out of the president, especially in some of these videos that he's released. He has been an ardent supporter of the Iranian people. I think that he and his team believe that there is still a faction within Iran that can rise up against the IRGC and actually take a forward position within the country. Now, it's been a long time since Iran was a free country. So we're talking about back in the 70s, right? And especially with the the Ayatollah doing what he's done over the past several years of just suppressing dissent to the point of murdering his own people, you wonder who in country, especially just as of a couple months ago, killing thousands of his own people. You wonder who in the country is left to stand up and fight back. So I think the number one goal is to have the Iranian people take control of their own country and take control of their own destiny. And I think that's what the president and his team ultimately want. Now, for the American people, when it comes to the president and his position, again, I don't see another way around not putting boots on the ground. And I don't want that just as much as everybody else doesn't want that. But we've kind of opened this Pandora's box. The concern now is the vacuum that's created with the absence of leadership over in Iran. And we know the resources that Iran has. Iran has been supplying some of our strongest adversaries out there. And so if there's a vacuum there, there's an opportunity for our adversaries to come in and take. They're going to do just that. So the president's going to have to respond accordingly to make sure that doesn't happen and to prop up the Iranian people as best as possible.
Visiting with William Russell, he's a partner at Ballard Partners in D.C., has a finger on the pulse of what's happening at the White House and in the Congress. It would be easy to look at Donald Trump's foreign policy and go, man, this thing's all over the place. It's scattershot. There's no plan there. There are others, though, that say if you dig a little bit deeper, you see that all of this is interconnected, and the target that keeps popping up in all of this is actually China. If you go back to the conversation about the Panama Canal, if you go back to Venezuela and removing Maduro, if you look now to Iran and the oil shipments that were going out under the cover of darkness and being sold to China at a discount, that all of this is actually targeted toward China. Do you buy that explanation?
Yeah, I do. I think this is China's ultimate goal, is to suck up all the resources that exist in any shape, form, or fashion it comes. I mean, when we talk about these ghost ships, that's a wild thing to talk about, an oil tanker traveling in the dead of night with and nobody knows about it. It's an unmarked, unnamed ship that's traveling to China to deliver supplies from foreign countries. Like, yeah, I think that China is doing this. Yeah, I buy that. Yeah, I think that they're not clean group of people. They're going to play dirty. This is what playing dirty looks like. They're going to take advantage of everything. And back to the point, this is why I'm concerned about the vacuum that's created in Iran. If there's no clear plan moving forward, you're going to allow your adversaries to come in and take advantage of a resource-rich country. And in return, our adversaries will give the IRGC or whoever is claiming to be in charge anything they want. And that's what we have to stop here. That's what we have to, and that's why I think it's incredibly important for us to continue with these bombing runs. Like, Israel and the United States are going to do exactly what they need to, which is absolutely destroy any of these aggressive targets inside Iran. Again, the next step is who comes in and picks up the pieces, who puts it back together again. And again, I'd love to hear from the president and someone in his administration going into this week. Okay, great. That was a great weekend. Now what?
What is the clear strategy going forward? We will continue the conversation with William Russell on the other side of this break. A lot of other things happening in D.C. Tariffs, the Clintons on the front page, the Save America Act. We're back with you right after this.
From the Seabrook
Segment of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Morning, partner. The sun is up, the coffee is on, and you're starting your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross, here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Appreciate you being with us. The C Spire text line is open, 601-879-4395. C Spire, customer inspired. William Russell is my guest. I said we would move on to more domestic conversations, but one more thing before we do this. We've gotten reports this morning that Qatar has been hit with a strike, and they have shut down natural gas, liquefied natural gas production. We have also seen a report that a Saudi oil field or oil refinery has been hit that is owned by Saudi Aramco. They produce 550,000 gallons of oil a day, and that is at least temporarily shut down, plus the Strait of Hormuz. Basically a shutdown there, only a small percentage of ships making their way through that. Some of them have been fired upon. What about the economic impact of this globally? And forgive a multi-part question, Iran indiscriminately firing missiles at its neighbors and them joining forces with the United States, Israel, and what appears to be a growing coalition is an interesting war strategy.
What's the most dangerous person there is? It's a person who has their back against the wall with nothing to lose. And that's kind of the position that Iran is in right now. Now, I think they don't really have the capability to do much more than what they're doing right now, is what it seems. I don't think they're organized enough to execute a strategic bombing of outside of the people who are directly around them. That's the current situation of the lack of leadership that exists there, and I don't expect that to change. Now, one of the things that's happening right now that I think is a positive is everyone has kind of universally known that Iran is a problem. They have been a problem. They are a problem. They will continue being a problem. We've seen MBS make multiple calls to the president advocating for intervention in Iran for the months leading up to what happened this past weekend. And that's just one example of other leaders who are saying that this is, we'll support you in some shape, form, or fashion. Now, Iran striking these countries, their neighboring countries, that forces their hand. They are now definitely in this. And that's where I'm hoping that we'll see some more support from their neighboring countries as we continue to finish off what's left of the IRGC and then start to rebuild Iran. Now, turning to the economic side of things, don't you want to thank President Trump for the energy independence that he continues to push for? I mean, his economic policies here at home are the reason, what we're seeing overseas. That's the reason why he has the economic policies here at home that he has. We want to be able to be a net exporter in oil. We want to be able to be a net exporter in energy writ large. We want to be able to be self-sustaining so that when things happen in the world, we are not directly impacted. Now, obviously, with the Straits of Hormuz and all of the different logistics channels coming in and around Iran, that's going to cause some delays, obviously. But the most important thing that we're talking about is energy prices when we're talking about the supply here in the United States. And that's the thing that, for the longest time during the Obama administration, that was the Republican talking point. They'd started every press conference off with the price of gas because energy was so expensive. And that's the way that we operate here. That's how the barometer of how we know the country is doing well or not. It's the price of gas. And so I think that in the long run, this is going to work out. I think in the short run, there's going to be short-term pain, but that's anytime any kind of conflict happens in the world, because we are such a globally dependent country. We saw the same thing that happened at the beginning of the Russia and Ukraine conflict. We saw economic interruptions during that. So that this is not new, but I do think that because of the partners that are in region, I think we'll be able to get I hope we'll be able to get a better control of this more quickly, and that the long term we actually do succeed. I mean, the short term pain is truly that, just short term.
Can't help but wondering how that oil coming from Venezuela might be good for the United States in the coming days. William Russell is my guest. Let's pull it back to domestic stuff. It's been a while since the Clintons have been front page news for anything other than tabloid related stuff. Both Hillary and Bill Clinton testifying on, I guess it was Thursday and Friday last week. Do we take anything away from that?
No. I mean, I don't think that we've learned anything out of that. They're going to do what they were normally going to do, which is deny everything, as the Clintons are known to do. Now, I think there was an opportunity for a time where the Clintons, being at the end of their political careers, could have come in and thrown some metaphorical bombs into the arena and said some things that could have gotten everybody, including themselves, in some hot water. But I still think they're going to protect themselves, and that's what we're going to see. I truly don't think we're going to learn anything. I think this is just the normal process of the Oversight Committee and others on Capitol Hill that are going to do their best to try to find something to go off of in lieu of releasing the Epstein documents in their entirety.
State of the Union last week, President says Congress passed the SAVE Act. The House has done so. The Senate has not. It has not come to the floor. There's all this debate about a talking filibuster, if there are enough Republican votes to even get to the talking filibuster. Some of the holdouts that you would expect appear to be holding out, including Murkowski and Tillis and Collins and Mitch McConnell, or whatever's left of Mitch McConnell. Sorry, that was kind of disrespectful. My apologies. What happens here? It's a voter ID bill that 85% of Americans want, and Republicans can't get out of their own way in the Senate.
I think that we're seeing the dysfunction of Congress. I mean, this is nothing. This is nothing. So this dysfunction in the Senate specifically. I completely agree with you. This is exactly what America needs. We need to shore up.
I'm going to interrupt for just a second. I'm sorry, William. This just popped into my head. So why do Republicans deserve our vote?
It's a great question. I don't know if I can defend the Senate. I know there are individual senators who are good. There are individual senators who support SAVE Act, along with the president, most of the president's policies, right? It's my biggest concern and my biggest grief, I guess, for a very long time has been the leadership that sits atop the Senate. It's kind of been this go along to get along, next man up mentality, and they get stuck in trying to be, air quote, senators instead of governing the way that they should. It's almost as if the Republicans in the Senate operate in a world that no longer exists, right? We're talking about there is no era of statesmanship. There is no era of when 5 o'clock comes around, we're all friends again. No, the Democrats in the House, the Democrats in the Senate, they hate you. They hate everything about you. They do not like what you believe. They do not like what you stand for. And so trying to be their friend isn't going to get anything accomplished. So when you have a product like SAVE Act that is so overwhelmingly supported by Americans, now is the time, Leader Thune, to step up and do exactly what you were voted in to do, which was to push these policies that are overwhelmingly supported by the American people. Like, I understand that there are hesitations on the Democrat side. It's also a marketing thing that the senators from the Republican side need to do better of. They need to explain their position a little bit more and just dispel this media nonsense of saying that we're disenfranchising voters, saying that this is going to be a poll tax. All of this is nonsense. Like, if you have an ID, you can go vote. Do you have an ID to drive? You better, because you're breaking the law if you don't. Do you need an ID? Head down to the DMV and get an ID. The states, each individual state, can waive that fee or should pass laws so that those fees can be waived if you're getting an ID to vote. Like, there are ways. The point of this bill is to be absolutely shore up our voting processes. It's almost like E-Verify for voting. Why anybody would not support that, why Leader Thune won't find a mechanism to get 50+1 votes across the finish line for a bill like this, I have no idea. It eludes me why he would do something like this. But They continue to do things like this, does Congress. This is why you're in trouble. You're in peril when it comes to November, when it comes to the midterms.
Yeah.
You're in trouble because you can't do your simple job that we ask you to do, which is to legislate with good, conservative, Republican principles.
And
you can't manage to do that.
You know, William, when I say things like, when Democrats get power, they coalesce and they get stuff done. They may fight amongst themselves, but they all end up pulling the rope in the same direction. And I say, why don't Republicans do that? And I always hear, well, we're a party of ideas and we're a party of debate. You're a party of getting nothing done when you have power that leads you to lose power. Over and over and over again. We are out of time, my friend.
I know this.
I always appreciate the time. Sorry we didn't get into tariffs this morning. I know that would have been a fun conversation. We'll catch up soon. Thanks, William.
Happy Monday. Yeah.
Happy Monday. William Russell with Ballard Partners. We're back after this.
From the Bettable Glass Traffic.
No matter where you're from, Abbeville, Batesville, DeIberville, or any other ville in the SIP, you're starting your day off right. Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi.
No sleep till
Just in case you are keeping score at home, in the past 36 hours, 48 hours, Iran has attacked Israel, the United States, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, Jordan, Iraq, Bahrain, Oman, Syria, Cyprus, France, Italy, and the United Kingdom. Indirect attacks on France, Italy, and the UK through NATO camps or bases throughout the Middle East, not sovereign land. That is quite the war you're fighting. And William makes a good point when he talks about, a caged animal or someone with their back against the wall with nowhere to turn and nothing to lose. That can be a dangerous adversary, and it can at times. Overwhelming force tends to neutralize whatever threat may exist there.
I'd say they have everything to lose, those that are in power, and that's likely, one of the kicking and screaming actions you see here. Holding on as tight as you can, as long as you can.
Yeah.
But who knows is in charge, actually?
Well, and that's a really good question, right? So if, or at least in the interim, who is in charge? Who's the next leader of the regime? The quick history, there have only been two Ayatollahs. You had Khomeini, followed by Khamenei. Ali Khamenei, most recently the supreme leader, the most recent Ayatollah that was killed on Saturday. Prior to that, you had Khamenei, who was the original supreme leader in Iran, was involved with the revolution in 78 and 79, and took control of the country until he died in 1989. And so Ali Khamenei, or Khamenei, has been in power since 1990, late 1989, 27 years. Sorry, 37 years. Math's off on that.
And he claims the direct line to the Prophet Muhammad.
He does.
That's what the black turban means.
So he's dead. Ali Shamkhani is dead, Secretary of the Security Council. Mohammed Pakpour is dead, commander of the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard. Aziz Nazirzadeh is dead. He was the Minister of Defense. Mohammad Shirazi is dead, the head of Military Bureau. And Abdul Rahim Mousavi is dead. Now, yesterday, there was a temporary leader that was put in place. What is it, Arefe?
Arefe, yeah.
Yeah. He's dead now, too. They killed him. So who's in charge of the regime? It appears as if there are two people that are co-leading. Masoud Pezeshkian, who is the president of Iran, and Gholam Hossein Mohseni Ejihi, who is Chief Justice, and he's a hardline cleric. And the two of them are somehow sharing power. I'll let you guess which one has more power in that shared power. By the way, a report that former Iranian president, who was under house arrest, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, has been killed by Israelis as well. So they got a council of 82 people that have to come together pretty quickly and decide who the boss is. Mojtaba Khamenei is the son of Ali Khamenei and has been the rumored successor. And then others within the leadership structure, Mohammed Ali Mavahedi Kermani. These names. He's the head of the Assembly of Experts, which means he runs the operation that's supposed to name the next ruler. Their Ministry of Foreign Affairs is in the mix. And then Ali Larijani is the advisor on public policy and reportedly, through Oman, has tried to open some sort of negotiations with the United States. There's a problem with that. The United States doesn't believe you. You haven't backed it up, and you can't follow up what you say you're going to follow up on. And you've lied over and over again. So diplomatic negotiations at this point feel like a bit of a stretch for Iran. C-Spire text line open to you, 601-879-4395. They already have a leader in place. They had 4 lines of succession in every appointed position before the war. I appreciate that there is a line of succession. That line of succession has been decimated, 1, and 2, there is a process for appointing a new Ayatollah, and it is not a rubber stamp just because you are next in the line of succession. 8 o'clock hour on the way. I think you're going to enjoy the conversation with Brigham McCown with the Initiative on American Energy Security. That's coming up next.
All right, now to the important stuff.
Your VIP pass to hear what the most influential Mississippians are talking about.
This is very important. Huge news.
Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Good to be with you on this morning. Today is March 2nd, 2026. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi, presented by Community Bank, online at communitybank.net. Community Bank, rooted in our community. My next guest currently works at the Hudson Institute. At Hudson, he focuses on energy security, critical minerals, global supply chain, regulatory reforms, and the strategic competition shaping global energy markets. His name is Brigham McCown. Brigham's four-decade career spans the federal government, corporate operations, military command, academia, public policy, and a partridge in a pear tree. Brigham, good morning. I appreciate some of your time today. Whew, what a weekend we have had.
Absolutely, Richard. Thanks for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be with you and the listeners in Mississippi that I think very fondly of.
I appreciate that very much. I should also mention that Brigham is a decorated naval aviator. Thank you certainly for your service. As you watch what is happening in Iran unfold, I'm curious what strikes you first, because there certainly are political implications. American lives are at stake. Global shipping lanes have been disrupted. We are seeing a very volatile global stock market with both oil and liquefied natural gas reserves being either knocked offline or pausing production right now because of bombings. What stands out for you right now?
Yeah. Well, what stands out is we have a regime that is probably the world's largest sponsor of state-endorsed terrorism, a regime that's been around for 47 years, a regime that has now had two leaders. The current leader that was eliminated over the weekend had been in place since the late 1980s. We've tried everything and to keep them from developing weapons of mass destruction, from building missiles. And when you put a nuclear program together with intercontinental ballistic missiles, a program, it's not hard to see where they want to go. And unfortunately, years and years, decades of negotiations have not worked. And, you know, whether it's right or wrong to go in there right now, the Iranian regime is at its weakest point that it's been in decades. And so that decision was made that it's just not going to get any better from here on out. But Iran is very different today than it has been. Israel is very different today than it has been because most of the Gulf states, quite frankly, have turned against Iran in the last couple decades. They see them as a problem, not a help. And I think that has been seen as Iran has lashed out at its neighbor states, and the other Gulf Arab states are now turning against Iran, along with the U.S. and Israel. That would have been unheard of just a few years ago.
And I don't know, Brigham, that there's an actual strategy that is in place for Iran, but if firing missiles at Bahrain and Saudi Arabia and UAE and Qatar and other Gulf states was part of the plan, it was pretty ill-conceived, or at least seems to be, because those states that might have been neutral or might have kind of worked with Iran in some capacity, they're now adversaries, right?
They are. And Richard, you're spot on. And I think from the Iranian perspective, they're hoping that this somehow translates into leverage where the Gulf states will ask the U.S. to stop it. That, hey, we don't want to have our airports bombed. You guys can stop this. I think this is what happens when you have a regime or any government that has tunnel vision, that is in its own little world that doesn't see the world clearly. And yes, we have market disruption of oil supplies flowing through the Straits of Hormuz. It's about 20%, but it's not the that 20% isn't the American part. It mainly goes to China and regrettably some smaller points I shouldn't leave out that go to Japan and South Korea, but China is the one losing out the most. They have the most to lose by the straits being closed for a long period of time.
I asked a guest about this earlier this morning, and I would be interested to hear your thoughts on this. It is easy to look at Donald Trump's foreign policy and feel like it's scattershot and it's disorganized and it's here and it's there. But if you start connecting the dots, I'm wondering if it all goes back to China. If you think about control of the Panama Canal and that fight that he took on early in this particular administration, what's happening in Venezuela, what's now happening in Iran, does this all point back to China in your mind?
It does. It absolutely does. And look, I understand President Trump. I've not served actively in his administrations, but I've been part of both of his transition teams at a couple of different agencies. This is three-dimensional chess. China is perceived, and I think pretty accurately, as the largest threat to Western way of life, to American independence. And China has started squeezing wherever it can. It doesn't play by our rules. Might makes right to China. They're pushing out into Asia, past what we call the first island chain. They're limiting supplies of rare materials that we need here in the United States. The pinch point for China is oil. They import over 70% of it. And what we've seen is slowly removing China's chess pieces from the board globally, and that is likely to continue.
What does... There are a couple of statements that in the last 24 hours have been released. One that is kind of a joint statement from the Gulf states saying that they support what the United States is doing and they are ready to exercise defensive measures to defend themselves against attacks from Iran. And then you've also seen the E3, Germany, France, and the UK say that they are in support of this. Keir Starmer's statement was, waffly and kind of whiny at best, but ultimately said, hey, we're going to defend. What is the significance of those two statements for the United States, and I guess to a lesser degree Israel, in this engagement?
I think it's huge. And, while I think this administration would prefer a coalition of the willing, the problem has been, again, that we've kicked the can down the road with Iran through multiple presidential administrations here in the United States. Europe has not wanted to directly engage, preferring diplomacy. Again, the problem is diplomacy only works when both sides have the same values and same culture, and that doesn't work here. So what started out as exasperation with the United States, France said some pretty derogatory things. Starmer said you can't use my bases, has suddenly turned practically overnight because they realize that they've seriously miscalculated and they're on the wrong side of this. Privately, Europe, the Gulf states, they would love to see Iran, the Iranian regime, go down the tube. Saudi Arabia urged us 20 years ago to, quote, cut off the head of the snake, and they meant the Iranian regime. It's been difficult, and again, it's easier to talk about than to make happen, and we'll have to see how this turns out. Iran is seriously wounded. It's not out yet, but within those 48 hours, we've achieved effective air supremacy, and now we're moving systematically to remove every single launch pad, every single method of targeting that Iran has. And I think in the next week to 2 weeks, we'll have a much better outcome.
Brigham, it's
or a much clearer outcome, I should say.
Yeah, hopefully. So you think limited engagement. You don't think this is a protracted war?
I don't. And, if anything, Trump campaigned on ending these endless wars. And what you didn't see in Venezuela were boots on the ground. What you didn't see was nation building. I think the same thing is here true. Let's be candid. Iran has been a forever war, hot and cold, since 1979 when they took 50-plus hostages for 444 days. This is to end this once and for all, to remove what is considered one of the largest threats globally to nuclear proliferation and state-sponsored terrorism. So there are ambiguities, there are risks, things can happen, but so far it's progressing, I think, more cleanly than most analysts would have expected.
You mentioned Saudi Arabia just a second ago. Our relationship with the Saudis seems to be stronger than it has been in a long time. Mohammed bin Salman as the crown prince there. Obviously, there are human rights issues and a checkered past, but it does seem like there is progress that is being made in Saudi Arabia. What is the significance of MBS throwing his support into this?
Yeah, I think it's pretty significant, right? And we have to keep in mind that while many of the states, and if we look at Jordan as a great example of a more progressive Gulf state, or, Bahrain, Kuwait, they're trying to change centuries of beliefs and views, and it doesn't happen overnight. So they have their own population they have to deal with. They can only move so quickly. Saudi Arabia is probably one of the most conservative of the Arab countries out there, but Saudi Arabia has been aligned strategically with the United States, since the late 90s, early 2000s. So I think it's extremely important. Saudi Arabia is the strongest player in the region, and we're not always going to see eye to eye on everything, but it's headed in the right direction.
Give me a 10-second answer. We're up against a break. Oil markets, what are they going to ultimately do today?
I think they'll go up 8 to 10% and then stabilize. Straits of Hormuz are functionally closed, but short term, unless something else happens that we're not forecasting, I think they'll drift back down within the next week.
Brigham, thanks so much for your time. Great stuff today.
From the Venable Glass.
Wake up, get up, and start your day right with Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Sorry about that, Lance. I knocked the control off for my headphones. I couldn't hear anything. To fix that. Good to be with you this morning. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi. First time that Brigham McCown has joined us. I hope it is not the last. That was a lot of information in a short period of time. And guy that's got the resume to back up what he is saying. Has worked in 4 different presidential administrations, been on a couple of transition teams, former naval aviator himself, and I think a Naval Academy graduate as well, if I remember correctly.
And also, he got the power cut back on during Katrina. That was his mission here. We were visiting during his intro. Yeah, he was saying, if we had time, he was going to get into that. But, yeah, he came here during Katrina and was one of those, and likely the man in charge of getting the power back on for folks.
There you go.
Mississippi, he has a lot of love for Mississippi.
Well done. You can join the conversation on the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395. C Spire is helping your tax refund go farther. You can get the devices you want. Right now, new and current customers can get 3 free devices plus 100 gigs of data for just $100. It's all part of C Spire's Ultimate Connect bundle. Any new iPhone or Samsung Galaxy is free, plus a free smartwatch and a tablet to go with it. So don't wait. There's more to see. Shop now at cspire.com or visit your local C Spire store today. Alongside Lance Tolbert, I'm Richard Cross. You can jump in and join the conversation on the C Spire text line. Let's check those messages, 601-879-4395. Why isn't anyone mentioning the fact that Obama helped this Iranian regime by sending plane loads of cash to Iran? And I mean, not just one, on the radio, no other news platforms either. It's interesting you say that. Jane and I rode together to Obi's lacrosse game on Saturday, and we got there. She's like, ooh, I feel like I just got a foreign policy crash course. I was like, well, consider the source. I don't know how reliable I would make it. But we talked a lot about that. I said, look, you've got to go back to the Obama and the Biden administrations if you want to look at why Iran has the ability to do what they have been doing for the last few years. And it was not just Barack Obama as president. He ultimately gets the credit or the blame, depending on how you want to look at it. But John Kerry, as Secretary of State, was an absolute disaster. He kind of, in a lot of ways, ultimate statesman and blah, blah, blah. There are times where I think John Kerry makes Keir Starmer look like one of the strongest leaders that the world has ever seen. Oh, we're going to trust Iran. We're going to lift the sanctions. We're going to allow them to function. We believe that they're going to do the right thing. You were lied to. You were played, JK. And that's not joking in shorthand on text. That's John Kerry, Mr. Secretary of State, Mr. failed presidential candidate. Put the blame on John Kerry and put the blame on Barack Obama for allowing Iran, who was at best on life support as a country. They had zero money. Unshackling the billions and billions of dollars in addition to handing them cash and lifting sanctions so that they could function as a company. What'd they do? They got the oil pumping. They started selling it illicitly. They started stockpiling the cash to build their weapons stockpiles. Most ballistic missiles of any of the Gulf states stockpiled. And, oh, by the way, a nuclear program that has been pedal to the metal since those sanctions were lifted. Good work. Good long-range view. Yeah. Yeah. So, yes, I'm glad you brought that up. And the Biden administration did not exactly make things difficult. They really didn't. Some of you got a chuckle out of me going through the names of the Iranian regime leadership group. Yeah.
If you had to go through all of those, it would have been that would have been a treat there.
I
He said,
I
go
have
fast.
a secret. I have a secret, but I'm not going to tell you what the secret is. Maybe I will. Go fast and speak with confidence.
Yeah.
I had one of our current legislators send me a message. I'll read this to you. He said, would you have ever thought your career would take you to a point of trying to pronounce Middle Eastern names on statewide radio?
Well, if you'd have been doing soccer, maybe, but yeah.
I don't know if that was on the bingo card. Yeah. Mo said, do you mean those Iranian obituaries you were reading?
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. To former President Joe Biden, former Vice President Kamala Harris, hey, what would your message to Iran be? Don't.
And then write him a check.
Man, that was, hey, what's your message to your kids about being late, getting home from curfew? Don't.
And then allow them to get home late.
And then no punishment whatsoever when they show up 45 minutes late 3 nights in a row.
Yeah, write them a check. Yeah. What a disaster, though. I mean, whether you like Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, John Kerry, you just keep going down the list. I mean, you may think they're good people. Somebody you might want to have a beer with or something. They were terrible in everything that they possibly did.
There's nothing that you can look at that they did from a foreign policy standpoint and be like, you know what, we are better, safer, more prosperous as an American people today because of the decisions they made. Not one thing.
And you can also say we're poorer as people because of the decisions they've made, too, domestically. ACA comes to mind. There's a lot of that, honestly. Remember, gas prices. Keep going because it doesn't end.
Well,
and that's not an attack. That's reality.
President Donald Trump saying that he is very disappointed in Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of Britain, for initially refusing to allow British air bases to be used for U.S. strikes on Iran. They said no, and they pointed to international law and legality issues. In a change of position, yesterday, Keir Starmer announced that the U.S. can use bases in England and on Diego Garcia. They going to hold on to that piece of land in the Indian Ocean to strike Iran's ballistic missiles and their launch and storage sites, but not to hit other targets. Trump said the change in position is useful, but it took far too much time. What does he mean? Here's what he means. B-2 bombers being able to take off from the Indian Ocean versus Missouri, strategic advantage. And by the way, those B-2 bombers that we became familiar with back in June that were carrying 30,000-pound bunker busters, only aircraft on the planet that can carry and deploy those particular bombs. Well, this go around, they are carrying 2,000-pound bombs. That's 15, 16 of those per run with a short turnaround to reload. It is a game changer, not having to fly 32 hours round trip to get a new payload. Changes everything. It's funny how once Britain's interest, read their people, were in trouble, all of a sudden international law didn't carry quite as much weight. Yeah, I think we do have some room for you to launch your planes from our bases. Come on over. Somebody on the C Spire text line earlier this morning said, maybe with all the Muslims moving into Britain, some of the British patriots have moved out into the Middle East. A significant number, as many as 200,000 Brits living in the Gulf states. And Keir Starmer recognizing that, oh yeah, they're firing on our people and our bases.
Yeah, and his people who've been leaving in droves to go to the sunny Gulf states, get away from what's going on at home.
Go figure that there were Brits that thought that they would be more free and more safe living in the Gulf than living in the United Kingdom.
That's rich, isn't it?
I mean,
come on.
Say that out loud to yourself and think about where we are. JT Mitchell from the SuperTalk Mississippi News Team going to join us coming up. We will talk about the fact that UMMC fully reopening today, among a lot of other things as well. Glad to have you along for the ride. 30 more minutes this morning. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi, streaming at supertalk.fm. C-Spire text line open to you, 601-879-4395.
From the Zebra. You're waking up to what's happening. Mornings with Richard Cross. Right now on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Good to be with you on this Monday morning, the second day of the month of March. Mornings with Richard Cross is presented by Community Bank. Online at communitybank.net, rooted in our community. Richard Cross, Lance Tolbert, and now the one and only JT Mitchell, the news director with the SuperTalk Mississippi News Team. Good morning, JT. There is a glorious thing that is happening outside the window of my office.
Good morning, Richard. What's happening outside of your window?
Debris removal.
Let's go.
One of those big double trailers with the clamshell in between. Finally getting the debris.
Hey, but
that's piled up at the streets.
That's an example, and I assume this is debris from the winter storm, correct?
Yes, it is.
That was 5 weeks ago.
It's crazy.
That's an example of how
time marches on, buddy.
Exactly. Time marches on as the rest of people in North Mississippi and pockets of the Delta are continuing to recover.
That is absolutely right. I'll tell you who a group that feels like time has been standing still for almost a week and a half, maybe the leadership team at UMMC, as they have been trying to recover from a cyber attack that happened a week ago Thursday morning. We mentioned this during our news headlines earlier this morning. UMMC scheduled to be back fully online at full capacity with all of their clinics today. My guess is that doesn't mean that everything is 100% hunky-dory back to normal, but they are at least at a place where they can operate at full capacity.
I think you're right, and I think that the people at UMC would hope that they could say that everything was hunky-dory. It's not, but everything is getting closer to hunky-dory. By that, here
Very
we are.
Very technical term, by the way.
Exactly. That's what we do in the newsroom. And so we're 10 days removed from this cyber attack, and all clinics, which you have nearly 36 across the state that have been closed, are now back open. That is a really good step in the right direction. Of course, hospital services have been operating via pen and paper. I got a release 19 minutes ago from UMC that said their phone lines are now working. That's great news. I mean, you got to think about how widespread this attack was. It took down the website, which came back Friday afternoon. It took down some of the phone lines, which we found out 19 minutes ago. You can now call UMC again and not have to use that line they put out there, the triage line. And then clinics are back open, hospitals are running. Of course, there are a lot of questions that we still have, but this is significant progress for one of the state's largest healthcare providers.
Do we believe or do we know whether or not UMMC paid a ransom?
Fantastic question, because I have no idea. However, I can speculate a little bit. Because when you and I were talking to some people that we work with during our weekly content meeting, you know, a lot of cases of ransomware in the past, you kind of have two options. That is pay it and move on, or that is completely start over. UMC kept its same URL. I'm not going to say that UMC paid the ransom because I do not know, but they do have the FBI, the Homeland Security, everybody working on this. And, you know, this isn't like one of those human-to-human ransoms where you can kind of drop a bag of cash in the mall parking lot and then have cops scattered across the perimeter, and then, boom, you go in and get the person behind it. This is a cyber attack. This is being done through secure lines. You know, these people are smart.
Which mean the ransom would have been demanded in some form of crypto, most likely Bitcoin.
You would think so. And so these people are smart. These people aren't going to the mall parking lot to pick up a bag of cash and then the FBI swoops in. So I cannot get on here and confidently tell you, because UMC is not telling me if they've paid the ransom, but things are moving back toward where they were. And I hope to get an update soon. Hopefully they'll have a press conference with law enforcement partners and kind of give us some more insight, because your interview last week gave us a little more insight. It was referenced by multiple publications. I don't know if you saw that, but Dr. Lou Ann Woodward came on your program and confirmed that they've received demands. That was last Tuesday.
Financial demands.
Financial demands. We do not know how they addressed those financial demands. And to be frank, that's smart for them not to tell us. You know, they are in an active investigation.
And perhaps a negotiation as well. We do know, though, based on the conversation that we had with State Auditor Shad White, that if a ransom was paid, ultimately, we will know about that. We will know how much, because it would have been paid with taxpayer funds.
That's a great point. And, you know, sometimes I've gotten into the rabbit hole when it comes to cases of ransomware because of this situation. And I've found examples in the past where, you know, you can pay a little bit here and get this back. You know, if you pay a little bit, you can get your URL to your website back. You can pay a little bit here. Maybe in this example, make sure that none of those medical records leak or whatever. I don't know exactly what calculation they used, if any. But all I know is that they are making progress. And for the first time in 10 days, clinics statewide through the University of Mississippi Medical Center are back open.
You know what's interesting to me about ransom demands in cyber attacks is that there appears, as crazy as this sounds, to be some level of honor among cyber thieves. I've just never understood, like, you pay the ransom and you get your stuff back. Why don't they just turn around and attack it again? Or what's to make sure that they actually turn it back on when you follow through with what you say you're going to do? But it appears that, generally speaking, when a ransom is paid, the cyber threat ends and everything's brought back online.
I think you're right.
I don't know how that works. I do not understand that concept, but
honor among thieves, I guess.
Cyber thieves in this case, yes.
Cyber thieves in this case. And I know for a fact that the FBI has caught cyber criminals in the past, and they've traded jail time to go work for the FBI. I mean, I don't know what kind of characters the world of being a cyber attacker draws, but apparently there's a little bit of honor, I guess.
If you have read any of the Vince Flynn books, you know about Marcus, who is like this genius. One of the characters in the books, he's a genius who was into hacking, bragged about it to the wrong person, ended up arrested, and then ultimately went to work for the kind of the CIA.
Yeah, and you know Shad White, he actually mentioned it. I think it was an interview with you, not the one last week, but the one where he issued the report that said a lot of state agencies are not prepared for a cyber attack. And after that, in that interview, he said that, you know, these people, a lot of times, yes, they are financially motivated, but to him, some of these people are just trying to hold some accountability. They're trying to push holes through the system. But I think at the end of the day, a lot of it is financial. Do not get me wrong. But he said that.
Yeah, no, I remember that. I do. Also, in the conversation of time marches on, we are now 6 days away from once again changing our clocks. We will spring forward as daylight savings time begins this coming Sunday.
Let me be subjective for a moment. Thank the Lord that we will get some extra sunlight at the end of the day. I know that this is a hot topic, and I know that people will probably be arguing in the hallways of this radio station later today about daylight saving time or standard time or whatever. But me personally, I'm very glad. What about you?
Big fan.
Big fan, no doubt. So this Sunday, we will...
A little darker in the morning for a little while longer, for a little while. But you get more daylight in the afternoons.
Yeah, it's in the waking hours. I mean, you can get that afternoon walk when you leave work instead of leaving work and it's pitch black outside. So here's my PSA. This Sunday, we will spring forward. I know everybody out there has smartphones, laptops, iPads, etc.
Turning your clocks forward is not the same activity that it used to be.
It's not, but if you have an oven or a microwave, you still have to do it, unless it's one of those smart ovens or microwaves.
Unless it's a smart oven or a smart microwave.
I don't have, not yet at least, but it happens this Sunday at 2 a.m. local time. Do it on Saturday night so you don't wake up in one of those time-blind frenzies that we all know so well. You're
an hour late for Sunday school.
You're an hour late for church. I love diving into the arguments behind daylight saving time. Have you ever done that?
Yeah, I mean, the argument against tends to be that it's not necessarily safe for school children, right? Because for part of the year, they're going to be standing at the bus stop waiting, and they're in the dark, and it's not safe. That's the most compelling argument I've heard.
Yeah, and if you look back at the history of it, I mean, a lot of times nowadays you'll be like, oh, this is the farmer's fault. Well, the farmers are like, don't blame me. This is not on us. I mean, and this is the million-dollar question as to why is daylight saving time observed. New York Times did an article in 2025, very intriguing actually, and they said that Benjamin Franklin was credited with the idea after he realized he was wasting his mornings staying in bed. And then we went into World War I and said we're going to conserve energy. But apparently, according to the New York Times, you can blame Benjamin Franklin because he was oversleeping.
Ben Franklin did a lot of good, though, so maybe we
He did
let it slide.
a lot of good. This may be the one bad that I can put on Sir Franklin.
That whole electricity thing seems to kind of outweigh the clock issue.
Oh, yeah.
We'll take a time out. Back with more with JT Mitchell, news director with the SuperTalk Mississippi News Team, as we wrap things up on Mornings with Richard Cross.
From the Venable Glass.
Waking up Mississippi. From South Haven to Scuba, it's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Mornings with Richard Cross. One last time with you on this Monday morning, March 2nd. JT Mitchell, the news director with the SuperTalk Mississippi News Team, is in studio, as he is almost every Monday morning. I got a message from a friend who works in, let's just say works in government, not an elected official, said that there is legislation that is being discussed that would coincide with a term or an idea or an activity that was used during the Revolutionary War that allowed private U.S. ships to seize British assets. The idea being that the best and brightest cyber attackers do not work for the government, and if we provided a financial incentive for them to seize our adversaries' assets, it might be a good thing. If you can't beat them, join them, I'm just saying.
If you can't beat them, join them. And who was the author you brought up last segment?
Vince Flynn.
Vince Flynn, got to write it down. You know,
the late Vince Flynn. Espionage fiction. It is a remarkable series of books.
Let me go ahead and put that down. Vince Flynn. And, John Grisham, Mississippi's own, he just released his first ever Whodunit, The Widow. Really good, by the way. And there's actually some cyber criminals in there. And they're actually trying to pull hospital records to prove someone innocent.
Wow.
What are the odds?
What are the odds?
What do you know, John Grisham?
1 week from tomorrow, polling locations across the state of Mississippi will open at 7 a.m. for primaries. You've got early voting going on right now, including this Saturday.
Do I even need to say it?
Well, I'm going to give you the opportunity.
Lance, you want to run it back? We said this last week.
Vote! Get out and vote!
That's right. V-O-T-E. Turnout is terrible historically, and if you want to complain, go vote.
JT is fighting a good fight. We're just letting you know.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mose. He said he voted on Friday.
Thank you, Mose. Primary elections are a week from tomorrow. Polls are open 7 a until 7 p. If you are in line before 7 p, you are legally entitled to cast a ballot. Hey, and if you're going to be out of town on Election Day, if you're 65 or older, are you disabled, or do you have another eligible excuse, you can vote right now. You can go to your local clerk's office and vote right this moment, in-person absentee. If you qualify, the last day to do so is this Saturday by noon.
And the rules are pretty loose.
They're pretty loose.
They will likely let you vote early if you have an excuse with a pulse.
Excuse with a pulse is a great way to say it. I mean, because we work on Election Day, and so I have sent employees in the past with a note that I've signed off saying, they have a legitimate excuse. They are a member of the media, etc. And oftentimes they're not even checked.
Not even asked for.
They just trust you.
Note. That's right. Legislature this week. Big time deadlines, some significant legislation that is hanging in the balance that is perhaps on its way to the floor for debate. This may be a pretty big debate week in the Capitol.
I think so. I think it very well could be, because we've gotten past this phase where the originating chamber has done all of its work. And last week we were talking about appropriations. Now we go back and we're talking about general bills and constitutional amendments. And so this week we have some deadlines where, for example, tomorrow, committees in the opposite house have to report those bills from the other side. So if the House receives a Senate bill that was passed, it has to be reported out of committee tomorrow. And so it could be a big week of debate. It really could.
JT, I am led to believe from multiple sources that there is real progress that is being made on the budget, that there is some cooperation between the House and the Senate, and that this is not something where we are going to be looking up. I'm not saying that there won't be conference weekend activity, but that it's not like they're going to sit down and start talking about it for the very first time when we get to conference weekend.
Well, I'm sure House Speaker Jason White is very happy then, because he has been pushing for a long time, as we've discussed, that they should not wait until the end to get the budget done.
I think both sides feel that way.
Both sides may feel that way, but you did make a really good point last week, Richard, that with some of this stuff you kind of have to wait. Not all of it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, there's legislation that will need funding that will have to be appropriated, and so you do kind of have to wait till the end on some of those things. But the framework of the budget can be done in advance of that, and it sounds like progress is being made toward that goal.
No doubt about it. And of course, the news team is doing a great job of covering every movement inside the Capitol. Go to supertalk.fm or tune in to over 50 stations that air our newswire every single hour.
There you go. Again, the website, supertalk.fm. Click on the latest news tab and keep up with everything that is happening in the state of Mississippi. We appreciate you being with us this morning. Ongoing conversation about the war in Iran and so much more as we go throughout the week alongside Lance Tolbert. And for JT Mitchell, I'm Richard Cross. Thanks for being with us. Mornings with Richard Cross, presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community, communitybank.net. Have a marvelous Monday.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.